Hello everyone. Well, the times are going to start requiring more from you. And what do I mean by that? Well, we're going to look at some times back in Jesus' time where his disciples and others tried to carry on with the instructions that he gave them. But they didn't understand. And even though they had the instructions, they didn't have the preparation. We can't do anything without doing the proper preparation. Prayer. Without prayer, we can't do anything. So we're going to look at some examples where people back then tried to do the miracles that he was doing. And some didn't have some very nice turnout on what they did. And they didn't understand. They said, Jesus, why can't we do what you do? He called them a weak generation. Well, we're coming up on times where there's going to be some major things happening here. I suspect sometime this year, before the election, there's going to be another possible 9/11 event. One in which they can, just like the first time, take away more rights. I'm thinking maybe martial law. That way they can do whatever they want and we can't stop them. It's already so far gone and deep that we probably couldn't stop them anyway. But that's not our concern. But it means we do have to prepare ourselves better. So let's look at some examples here from the Bible. Okay. Jesus talking in John 14:12. Most assuredly I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also, and greater works than these he will do. This is what he told them back then. If you want to be able to do the things that I do, just ask. And whatever you ask in my name, that I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it. But there's a caveat. You have to ask with faith. You have to ask with prayer. And in some cases, prayer and fasting. These demons and evil beings that are out there are very strong because they're powered by Satan. And as we get closer to his rule down here on earth, everyone's going to get more powerful. Let's take a look at, this is coming from Acts 19, let's see, where should we start at? I'm going to go back up and start at 19:11. Now God worked unusual miracles by the hands of Paul, so that even handkerchiefs and aprons were brought from his body to the sick, and the diseases left them. I would love to be able to do that now. Heal the sick. That's something that I've always asked God to do, and I always get, in some cases, yes, but it's not time to fully open the spigot. But we're getting close. And some of the itinerant Jewish exorcists took it upon themselves to call the name of the Lord Jesus over those who had evil spirits. So they're using his name, but they're Jewish. They're not Christian. And they would say, we exorcise you by the Jesus whom Paul preaches. And there were 7 sons of Sheba, a Jewish chief priest, who did so. And the evil spirit answered them and said, Jesus I know, Paul I know, but who are you? You don't want that. That's not good. Then the man in whom the evil spirit was inhabiting leaped on them, overpowered them, and prevailing against them, so that they fled out of the house naked and wounded. So these are the Jewish priests fleeing the house naked and wounded. But they were using the name of Jesus. But they didn't have the right method. So this became known both to all Jews and Greeks dwelling in Ephesus, and fear fell upon them all, and the name of the Lord was magnified. So they didn't do it right. Let's look at another example. I'm in Matthew 17:14. And we'll get down to it in a little bit. I'm just going to make sure you always have the context. And when they had come to the multitude, a man came to him, kneeling down to him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he's an epileptic and suffers severely, for he often falls into the fire and often into the water. So I brought him to your disciples, but they could not cure him. The disciples of Jesus couldn't cure him. And Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Bring him down here to me. And Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, Why could we not cast it out? And Jesus answered them, Because of your unbelief. For surely I say to you, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, Move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. However, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting. So, as we get into these end times and we see evil flourishing, and when we see it taking over more and more of what's going on in the world, you're not going to stop it by just saying, get out of here, shoo, I'll throw a rock at you, or whatever. You're not going to get rid of them unless you have faith, believing in Jesus, and believing that he has given you that direction to attack. Just because you think you want to do it doesn't mean God wants to. So by prayer, that will give you the confirmation that you're supposed to do it. And fasting, make sure that your mental strength is strong enough to handle it. We got to pull down the almighty powerful God down to the earth and sick him on these people. He's not going to come down here if you aren't dedicated. Now, he may have somebody else who's strong and powerful help you to deal with it, but he wants you to do it. He wants all of us to be able to do what Jesus did. So we got to learn. You just got to practice. But when you're starting out, you got to be very careful, because they can overpower you. But prayer and fasting, believing. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. If you have all the things that you need, you can do the same things Jesus did. Obviously, you're doing it for God's glory. You're not doing it for your own. But if you're doing it for God's glory, and you do it with prayer and fasting, or just a lot of prayer, you can do all these things. Try it, and let me know how it works. See a need, and pray for it. And do what it takes. And if God tells you to do something, do it. I mean, Jesus spit in the ground and made mud and put it in the guy's eyes. I wouldn't never think to do that in my entire life, to try to cure a blind person. But Jesus knew what he needed to do. Got a new member coming into the camp. Oh, you like my backdrop, by the way. I am inside my tent. It's been sprinkling a little bit. I have a new tent because my other one, the zipper broke for one on the door and I couldn't close the door all the way. And it's been leaking for some time. It's 20 years old. So this is my new tent and my new studio. I can always take the outdoors with me. That's not a picture behind me. We're looking out a window. And tents are not as expensive as the housing market is right now. So this is pretty good. I've ordered my satellite equipment, so we're waiting for that to get in. It used to be you could order anything and it would be there the next day. They're messing with our distribution system because they're doing everything they can to keep us on our edge, on our toes, worried about what's going on. It's a standard communist takeover. You got to get us off our game plan. You got to get us worried, and then you hit us with some kind of a major event. Like I said, I'm predicting that we will have this year, probably before the election, some kind of a 9/11 event. Now, I don't think our government's going to be directly involved, but I think that they're going to allow some people in that might be willing to do that. If you remember, the original 9/11 terrorists were here for a long time. They had to learn how to fly. And those are jumbo jets. You can't just get on those and fly. Even if you have a flight simulator to practice with, there's a lot of things you have to know to start them up and that. Now, granted, they said they didn't need to land them, just take off. So that's what they did. They focused on that. And I can't believe the instructors didn't pick up on that. That won't work. That tactic won't work again. But it may be anything that we can think of. They could have, there's missing nuclear suitcases. They won't level the city, but it will contaminate great parts of it. And any kind of an attack like that would give the government the right to take over, declare martial law, and call the election off. Under martial law, they can basically tell you step by step what you're to do. You got to be off the streets by 7 or 9 or 10 or whatever they come up with. You got to show up to get if you don't have it. I heard that in Australia, they're still being extremely strict on it. We heard what they were doing early on. They're being just as strict as they were early on. And I don't remember where I heard this is going to happen. It might be down there in Australia. But they came up with a ruling that said, if you're being sedated for anything, you got a hangnail and you're being sedated, you got a toothache, whatever it is, if you're under, they're allowed to give you without your permission. You're not able to answer because you're sedated. And they're going to get that taken care of. So we still don't have a very nice world out there. But in order to fight it, in order to prolong it so we can still reach people, you're going to have to do a lot more prayer and fasting than you've ever done before. And if you've never fasted, skip one meal. Then try 2. The purpose of that is to say that your body can fight back and not be distracted. Because if you're distracted, squirrel, you're not going to be able to keep your eyes focused on God. That's why Peter couldn't walk on water very long. But he did walk on water. A human being walked on water. Well, we know Jesus can, but he's God, so they always thought that maybe he had some special power. But Peter did walk on water until he became afraid of the size of the waves. So you got to stay focused. Discipline your body and your mind together. That's what the prayer and fasting is all about. Prayer is your mind, fasting is your body. by putting them together and making them work. Athletes who compete in major events do that. They make their mind and their body work together, and they can push themselves further than the average person can. And that's why they win. So we got to do the same thing. We are running a race, as Paul says. And we want to win. Or at least come in tied with everybody else alongside of us. All the Christians crossing the finish line at the same time. But that takes a lot of work. Start practicing today. If you don't have anything happen, do some more tomorrow. Do it every day. And you will start seeing things happen. I've seen God move in my life all the time. But I'm willing to move the directions that He wants me to go. So you have to be willing to do that as well. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get this posted. Like I said, I'm moving on Thursday. I think I'm going south. God willing, I've not booked my reservation yet. One of the things that I've noticed, and I will have to deal with, especially like with the satellite, is I've got to have a campsite that's got enough open sky. I can't be totally surrounded in trees. It makes it a very cool place out of the sun, but I can't communicate with anybody but the trees. So having the air conditioning that I have in here now, I can be out in the sun more. And that's what I'm going to try to do is I just moved my site today. I was back in the trees and I moved it out here, and I'm going to start testing some of the equipment that I just got, seeing how it works. I don't have the dish yet, but I got some of the other equipment, and I'm hoping that I can kind of jerry-rig some things to make that work. But I can certainly test, and if it all goes well, then what I'm going to do is probably drive to the park that I have picked out, and I'm going to drive around and look at the sites. If I've never been to the park or I haven't been in that section before, I don't know what I'm going to get. And so I'm going to go look. As long as they have plenty of sites and I'm not worried about getting bumped, that's the right way to do it on a new park. I'll come back here at some point in time because I'm making this work. I've got other sites that will work as well. But pray that I have God's help in finding these, because it's just, sometimes it's hit and miss. I can stay in a motel for 2 or 3 or 4 nights during the month if I need to. It's in my budget. But I'd rather be camping. If I stay in the hotel, I come out of there a little spoiled, a little not prepared for the environment again, because I've been in air conditioning that's really good and really strong. Mine works good to take it down to a tolerable level, but it doesn't. I'm not going to freeze meat here on the counter. It's not going to get that cold, but I can make a hotel room that cold. So pray for me that I continue to do this. My accounts, my YouTube account seems to have stabilized. It's not dropping anymore, but I really need to get it back up, because I'm not reaching enough people. Now, I told you in the beginning, and I told God this, I will do this for one person. And the good comments that you guys are leaving me, I really appreciate it. I really do. It helps to strengthen my spirit. But I want to reach as many people as I can. And if I can't do it here, I got to look at the other platforms. I don't know the other platforms, and I got to start studying on how to work with them. Figure it out, because if you don't do it right, you're going to miss people again. All right. God bless you guys. Have a great week. If you're watching this now, like it. Like this video. Subscribe to my channel. Those are things that will help overcome the filters. It will help get a bigger audience, and I need that. You can also share these videos. There's a little symbol down at the bottom that you can share it. You can share it on Facebook or on Instagram, some of these other places you can share them, Twitter, and the other sites that I'm trying to learn how to use, Rumble, yeah, and Telegram. There's other sites that I'm going to try to start looking at. If we have a Telegram expert and want to talk to me how to use the site, let me know. I'm going to have to go on and look at videos. All right. You have a great week until we meet in the clouds. God bless.